Hi, it's me again. I hope you've enjoyed this week's material. Of course, we talked about we talked. We don't talk in this class, do we? I talk and we read. Anyway, we went over the Constitution, and I hope you spend a lot of time reading the actual Constitution because it's important, and we will be referring back to parts of the Constitution as the semester goes on. The first thing I want to talk about is the weather. And you're saying, why the weather? It's cold outside, but this is online class, so fortunately you don't have to miss any class time if you can't get to school or if class is canceled or something like that. And yes, that's an advantage of online courses, but I don't want to talk about the weather here. I want to talk about the weather in Iowa. Because Iowa right now, it's cold, it's Iowa. But there's the possibility a blizzard's going to come through. Now, right now, it's going to come through Monday night after the caucuses, and so it may not have much effect. But if it comes in early, it could really affect the results of the Iowa caucuses because the people who are going to turn out are more likely to be the people who are more enthusiastic about their candidates. So, and it'll be interesting to see what happens there because what we don't measure in polls is how intensely people like their candidates. Some are like, yeah, I like this person, and other people will die to see that person elected. And intuitively we might have some ideas, but I saw an interesting poll recently, actually not a poll, but a pollster who was talking about the fact that Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton have equal intensities of preferences. Sorry, I've got a little munchkin here. This is Loki, by the way. You'll see him more, but he's skulking by for reasons that you'll see in just a minute. Anyway, so the weather can actually affect the turnout, and by affecting the turnout, it can affect who wins. Donald Trump, for example, is hoping for a huge turnout because he's got a lot of people who've never participated in caucuses supporting him. Bernie Sanders has a lot of younger people, and he's hoping for a larger turnout as well because it's the younger people who tend to turn out in larger turnout elections. Okay, sorry, I keep looking at my dog. Anyway, so that's just an interesting little twist. It's now we have the polls, but who actually comes out to support their candidates? And so again, remember, this is a game of finishing better or worse than expected. So if, for example, Ted Cruz beats Donald Trump, that's going to be a big deal. Also, look for who comes in third in the Republicans because a lot of people are looking for an alternative to Cruz and Trump. It looks like it may be Rubio, but then can Rubio do well in New Hampshire? Trump's got a huge lead there. Chris Christie, John Kasich are also looking strong in New Hampshire, and so things could get really interesting. But right now, Monday, the big deal is Iowa. Now, I want to talk about something else. So we're talking about federalism, and there are actually two different types of federalism. And the first type, I got my visual aids, is what's called layer cake federalism. And this is the idea where if you look at the top here, this would be the federal government, and down here is the state governments. And the icing represents a separation between the two. So federal powers, hypothetically, would be distinct from state powers. And in many cases, that's how things have been for a long, long, long time. And I have to say, this is a great model of federalism. But more recently, in the 20th century, you started to see where federal and state powers intermingled a little bit more. For example, when you talk about education, a lot of education is regulated at the state level, but the federal government gives grants that are based on fulfilling certain requirements. And so the states don't necessarily have to follow them, but they have to follow them if they want the grants. That's true for healthcare, it's true for highways, and some of the reasons we'll see as we go along, but a lot of it has to do with the fact that it's important economically for the federal government to regulate things so they're consistent between states. Civil rights had a big part of this because some states were resisting the 14th Amendment based on states' rights. And so there's been more intermingling of federal and state power. And so this leads to another type of federalism, which is called marble cake federalism. Now, I think some of you are going to notice that this is not really marble cake, but it's close enough. And you can see where the federal and state governments, although distinct, still intermingle with each other. And so sometimes it's hard to see where one ends and one begins. But, this too is a very important form of federalism. Oh, quite tasty. So, anyway, when you read about federalism, keep these two metaphors in mind and realize that now we've gone more to the marble cake. For good reason, I can tell you right now. One more thing. Oh, what's this? Oh, this is my receipt for the cakes. Actually, now these cakes are tax deductible because I use them in this video, and I can use it as witness. So I will save this for my tax returns next year. So next week, I'll explain the Electoral College using very expensive bourbon. No, I won't do that. I can't do that on camera. Anyway, I just wanted to say one more thing, but oh, my head's getting cold. Yeah, go Broncos, okay? Next week, we play on Sunday, and I hope that we have some good news. And certainly, I think is going to be some interesting news coming out of Iowa. And then the following week, we have the New Hampshire primary. So I hope you're paying attention to all this. It's a really exciting time to be studying American government as well as football. And I'll talk to you next week. Bye.